Good morning, good morning, good morning. And this is the day the Lord has made, and we're here to rejoice and be glad in it. I want to welcome you to Hope TV, and certainly it's a privilege and an honor to have you here with us. I'm honored that you carve out a portion of your Thursday to spend with us here at the Hope TV. We're hope dealers here, and our aim is to provide you with the daily dose of hope. I want you to know that even in these times of helplessness and hopelessness, there's always hope. And hope is that thing that gives faith a job. I'm excited to tune in to Hope TV. To those of you who are regular supporters of Hope TV, welcome back and thank God for you for being a part. Your support has been invaluable to us in the infancy of the Hope TV. Since March, your comments and your participation and your viewership has meant the world to us. You've helped us come from a small, meager vision to a platform that's reached well over 50,000 people and over 50,000 views in a short while. So thank you to those who tuned in through Apple TV, Roku, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, the edewissmith.org website, the House of Hope, houseofhopeatl.com website, the House of Hope Atlanta app. However you're viewing, it is my privilege and my honor to welcome you back to Hope TV. It means the world to us. Drop us a line. Let us know the city, state, and the country from whence you're viewing. Also, if you're watching through a platform that will allow you to subscribe, to like, to comment, or to share, I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. When you subscribe to that particular platform, you can get updates as when content is uploaded. And that means the world to us as well in terms of helping us to grow the platform. And your likes help us with our algorithms and our engagements. So please hit the like button if you're watching through a platform that will allow you to do that. Your comments also help us with our algorithms and our engagements. And during the teaching, presenting moments, those comments are like virtual amen. So if you can please leave that, that's certainly be a blessing to us. And then last but not least, if you can share this link, become an ambassador for HopeTV.com. Share that link with about 5 other people. Help us to get the word out. Certainly will mean the world to us. I appreciate you so very much. And let me also take this time to welcome all of our new viewers who are viewing this broadcast and through our newest edition, which is the HopeTV.com website. You heard me right. I'm just so excited about our website. We wanted one centralized repository for all our information because we have about 13, 14 different platforms that we stream through. But we wanted one centralized place where you can go get all things the Hope TV. And so the HopeTV.com, if you go there, you can see a daily schedule. Our TV guide is there, so you can check every day to see what's playing. You can watch every program live. We got broadcasts for married couples, for singles, for men, for women, for youth, for senior adults. We've got broadcasts that deal with emotional health. We have an exercise class every day, financial fitness, one for business owners, one for coronavirus survivors, those who've been affected by it. That's Katie Bowe. We have Meredith Lilly, one of the top political strategists in the world, who has a show there called Town Hall. I mean, you name it. We got comedy. I do a Friday Night Live. Just a complete network of programs. And so every day you can check it out. 5, 6, 7, 8 programs every day right here on the Hope TV. I love to hear from you. Drop us a line. Also, you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter on the website as well. And that way you can be updated rather, regarding things that are coming, the HopeTV.com. And then that's something else you can do too. If you want to be on the show, you can leave us a message. And then also, you also can leave me some funny videos to play for my Friday Night Live. Every Friday night live, every Friday night at 11 p.m., I do a funny thing, a night of comedy called Friday Night Live, and I do some top videos that will really bless your life if you love comedy. If you like comedy, check out my Friday Night Live. But you see some videos send them to me there as well, thehopetv.com. It will mean the world to me. So thank you very much for your viewership. I'm so excited, so very excited that you are with us today. It means the world to me. You know, we every Tuesday and every Thursday morning we do a devotional, and it's been so explosive in my opinion. So many people around the world have been impacted positively by today's broadcast and today's program, rather. Today's broadcast is called Morning Dew. And out of all the programs offered here, out of all the broadcasts and shows offered here on the Hope TV network, this is arguably one of my favorites. Yeah, it's definitely the top three, top four. It's called Morning Dew. I get a chance to share my devotional with you guys twice a week, and it's been very, very rich and very inspiring. I'm honored to have you back with us today. We've been taking a walk through the book of Philippians every Tuesday and every Thursday for, 2 months now. And we made it to the fourth chapter. And it's been amazing. I was reading through Philippians devotionally back several months ago, and it was so impactful for me personally that I wanted to share with you. That's something I typically don't do. I typically don't share my own devotional life publicly because I try to keep that for me, some stuff for me. But this was so rich and so apropos for this season that I felt led to share with you. And I'm excited about this conversation today. We're going to the book of Philippians. I think it's so apropos because Philippians has been called the book of mental health. And it's been called the book of mental health and emotional health. So many of the things that Paul addresses, it gives us a spiritual look. You know, there's a clinical view of mental health. That's very, very important. But there's also something spiritual that helps to undergird and support mental health and emotional health. And it's Paul. And Paul writes it in a very interesting time. You know, when you look at Apostle Paul, his relationship to the Philippians is an amazing relationship because you have to understand the nuances about Philippi. This territory called Philippi is in a region called Macedonia. And Macedonia was named in honor of Philip II of Macedon, who was Alexander the Great's father. And what happened in the 4th century BC was Philip II wanted to develop a colony for former soldiers who had fought at his behest, a place where they can live. And so this territory called Macedonia is here, and it's named in honor of Philip II of Macedon. And what happens here is Philip wanted to leave a parcel of land for a body of soldiers, so soldiers can have a place to reside. And what he does, he establishes this region called Philippi, and it was designated really for those former soldiers to have a place to live after they fought in the army. Well, here we are, 4 centuries after its development and after its colonization, and amazingly, Philippi has grown to a 1st century commercial hub. It's a travel hub. It's an epicenter of the 1st century world. The natural resources there, people would come to buy and do trade in the marketplace from literally all over the world because of its proximity to the Aegean and the Adriatic seas, because it's just a few miles inland from the Aegean. People wanted to get to Philippi. And so while they wanted to go there for business, while they wanted to go there for trade, Paul wanted to go there to bring truth. And so on the second missionary journey, he, Silas, Luke, and Timothy, after being commissioned at the Church of Jerusalem, go on a second missionary journey. And if you look at number 5 on your screen, if you look east, you'll see areas called Bithynia and Mysia. Those were the areas that Paul was at initially on that second missionary journey. He was trying to get the gospel to Mysia and Bithynia, some other territories. And you really can see all this story, what I'm telling you now. It's in Acts 16 when he goes back to, when he goes on the second missionary journey. He's trying to take the region, take the gospel around those regions there. But Luke tells us in Acts 16 that the Spirit forbade him. The Spirit blocked the route. The Spirit wouldn't let him take it into certain territories. He was having some success in some of those regions, but there was some places the Spirit didn't want him to go. And after being prohibited twice by the Holy Spirit, Paul says he had a vision one night, and a man appeared in his vision, in this dream, from this region called Macedonia. And if you look at Bithynia and Mysia and look west, and you see number 5, that region is called Macedonia. And that man told him, come over here and help us. So Paul goes over there, and when he gets there, he's met by a young girl who has a spirit of divination. She was able to fortune tell. She was owned by some men. It was almost like a form of first century human trafficking. She made money for those guys because she was affected by this mythical spirit. It was a demonic spirit, a snake spirit, a python spirit. It was also called a ventriloquist spirit. That was a snake there that was worshipped at the Temple of Delphi. And it was believed whoever had this ventriloquist spirit could fortune tell. And people paid money there so they could, like a palm reader or something, a tarot card reader, something like that. And so she made them money. And but she also recognized who God was. And she followed Paul and Silas and all of them around every day saying, these men are servants of the Most High God, which show unto us the way of salvation. And she did it many days. Paul gets grieved because he doesn't want to be credentialed by the demonic. He turns, casts the spirit out of the woman. Once that spirit was casted out of her, she can no longer fortune tell. Well, when she can no longer fortune tell, that means she can no longer make her master's money. And it was profits over people, just like it is now. Economy over humanity, just like it is now. And because of that, they were so upset, owners were, that they drew the markets and people out and beat Paul and Silas up, threw them in jail. And that's where we get that powerful miracle in Acts 16. Where Paul and Silas sing at midnight, an earthquake comes, looses their bonds, all of those who were incarcerated gets free. One of the jailers who was responsible for Paul's incarceration ends up getting saved and gets baptized, and Paul preaches the gospel, his whole house gets saved. So that's where Paul's initial affinity with the Philippian church started. And so he was released from jail, but although he's no longer in Philippi, he still has that connection and that love with the church that he helped to establish there in Philippi. But this time, at the time of Philippians, he's back in jail again. However, he's not in Philippi this time, he's in Rome this time. And while he's in Rome, he writes to the Philippians to really help them determine the importance of staying stable emotionally and how to make sure that your emotions are sanitized with the Spirit. I mean, you would think he'd be bitter, you think he'd be broken, you think he'd be bothered and triggered. But listen, man, he's so calm, he's so cool, he's so collected. And he's able to talk about the mind and keeping the right mentality. We know that he talks about the soul and the mind, and we know the soul is the seat of the mind and the emotions and the personality and the attitude. And Paul really, really, really is very helpful. Many Christian therapists say this is probably one of the greatest books in the Bible that deals with mental health. And I think in this season, this pandemic, that's why it was so important that this book was used, because it's just a good teaching principle. Great teaching principles in here about how we can let the mind of Christ be in us. That we can make sure that we learn and we know and we grow. Paul says, no matter what happens, anyway, I'm going to be all right. If they may kill me and I may die, that's possible. But if I live as Christ, if I die as gain. And he's not fatalistic. He's speaking through faith, but in such a way how he parses the reality of the circumstances that it really makes you see life through the lenses of faith and positivity. And if we can do that, it can help the mind and the emotions to always be stable and not be so fluctuating and oscillating. And it's just so very, very powerful. And he is confined, he is imprisoned, but yet his posture, the things that he writes, his approach, it's just so encouraging. And it just reminded me in a lot of ways of what we're facing now. He's confined by bars, prison bars. We are confined by a pandemic that's binding us. He's bound. He's confined by demonic people, and we're confined by a disease and a plague. He's confined. He's imprisoned. He's restricted. For the sake of our conversation, I say he's in Greco-Roman quarantine. And he's in an involuntary shelter in place. When I look at our lives and what we faced the past 7 to 8 months, we're confined, we're restricted, been stuck in the house, can't get out and gotta get dressed like you're going to war just to go to go to the grocery store, or just to go get some gas for your car. And I talked about that, and but yet his posture, the things that he's spoken the past several months to us have been just amazing. I hope you've been blessed by it. And today we're in the last chapter of Philippians. We're in the very last chapter of Philippians, and it's so rapidly come to this last chapter, and yet he issues today what I want to call a confinement challenge. It's a confinement challenge, and he's still on that theme, and I want to share it with you today because in many ways, and I don't want you to think that I'm being negative here, because I'm always hopeful. I'm a hope dealer, so my job is to give you hope. I believe I was born to bring a message of hope, really. And Bishop Jakes and I were talking some years ago about finding the purpose in that thing, and it helped me realize that I was placed on earth to bring hope. And what God did, God gave me various gifts by which I can accomplish that mission. And preaching, teaching, film, industry, comedy, whatever, that all of them work together to bring that message. This is a message of hope. So I'm always hopeful. I'm always believing that God has more and it's going to get better. So that would never change. That's who I am. However, in my call and my assignment on earth to bring a message of hope, what I also realize is that I have to be honest and truthful as a part of the message, so that I'm not just flowering, just throwing out optimistic oratory that has no substance. I can't just be about homiletical and hermeneutical hyping that's devoid of truth and discernment. And when I look at the times, I really believe, based upon the current state of politics in this world, or politics in America more specifically, I believe we're going to still struggle for the next couple of months with this whole issue of pandemic. I believe that it's been so politicized, and the politicization of this moment, because it's been politicized so much, that wearing masks and now the pandemic is, people have gotten caught in the crossfires of these political ideologies. And as a result, COVID-19 has been politicized. Wearing a mask has been politicized. And so because of that, there's not going to be any synergy or any collective effort to come up with strategies to help America defeat this, because it's just gotten out of hand. Because now you got a group of people who refuse to wear masks because they think to wear a mask means you're against a candidate. To not wear one means you're for a candidate. So it's been so politicized and the country is so divided. And I just sense that we're going to be here for a couple of months. It's going to be here for a while. And, they're talking about pushing the vaccine through, and which most of us not going to take it when it comes out, because we just feel like we've been caught in these political crossfires. So that coupled with the rise of the flu season, and the numbers are already shooting up before we have even gotten into the flu season, I would hazard to say that we're going to be here another 4 or 5 months, kind of in the same kind of predicament until the flu season peaks. I just sense that. So with that being said, things not going to be back to normal in January. We don't want me to move around. We're going to be wearing masks for a while. We're still going to be deal with these issues with quarantine for a while. And while some people are trying to hurry to get back, and that's to each his own. But I'm telling you, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic that's been politicized, which makes matters worse. We're gonna get through it, but everything's not gonna be back to normal in January. It's not gonna happen. Not those who are prudent and those who are wise. Regardless of what happens in the election, things will not be the same in January. We're gonna still be restricted and confined somewhat. But I believe that Paul has a word for us today. I call it it's a challenge of confinement. That while we're confined, that there are some things that Paul says we can do. I'm going to challenge you to do some things while I'm in confinement, while we can't gather publicly, while we can't meet. I'm going to give you a challenge. And when I read it, that's the way the Holy Spirit, that title of the Holy Spirit dropped in my heart to share with you. He said, this is a confinement challenge. That's the confinement challenge that Paul gave to the church of Philippi. And it's also a challenge that I want to give to you, and I'm giving to you, and you do, and you all who watch it, that during this time of confinement and restrictions, during this time of quarantine, I want to challenge you to do a couple of things. And really, when you read Philippians chapter 4, and that second verse is where you see what I call a confinement challenge. If you look at it, you'll see this. He says in Philippians 2, what he says. He says, I urge you, dear, and I urge Syntyche to iron out their differences and make up. God doesn't want his children holding grudges. And yes, and oh, yes, Zacchaeus, since you're right there with them to help them work things out, do your best with them. These women work for the message hand in hand with Clement and me. And remember what the other veterans worked as hard as any of us. Remember their names also in the book of life. Do y'all see that? He says, I want you to do something for me. Here's what I want you to do. I can't get to you. We're separated. Okay? We can't come together for worship. We're not able to gather. We're confined. It's by prison walls. The prison walls keep us from gathering. My bonds have prevented me from being there with you. And unfortunately, I won't be able to gather with you. All right? But even though we're still facing confinement, even though we can't congregate because of the confinement, I want to give you a challenge. And the challenge that Paul gives is three-layered. That three-layered. There are three phases or three things that make up this challenge. I'm going to share it with you. The first challenge that Paul gives to us, the first part of the challenge, this confinement challenge, deals with the inclusion of sisters. That's what I call it. The inclusion of sisters. Yeah, put an S on that for me. The inclusion of sisters. That's what it deals with. It's the inclusion of sisters. Look what he said. He says, I urge you, Judea and Syntyche, to work out their difference. Listen, Paul says, I want. There's some sisters I got to give a shout out to. He said, now know this. Now I don't know exactly when these differences began, but what I want to talk about is this. Paul is writing in the first century and in a prison epistle. He talks about Epaphroditus in the early chapter, but now he closes the letter in this last chapter, and he's talking about women. Now you really got to understand this. This is a first century context. We're talking about patriarchy and misogyny, this patriarchal normative that was so restrictive where women weren't even given I mean, there were even the possibility of first class and first rate treatment. In some quarters, women were considered to be property, because of the cultures and the norms of that day. Women weren't treated with equity. You know? Another passage Paul says, if you have questions about a spirit, you ask your husband at home, based upon the mores of that day and where women were at the time. You would not think that Paul would be so direct in his inclusion of women. But it is so powerful that these women make the letter. They're included. He cannot finish the letter without calling the names of these sisters. And I want to talk about that because I think it's such a beautiful picture of Pentecost and the day of Pentecost when the Spirit showed up and the church was born. And Peter quotes from the prophet Joel in Joel 2, and God said, I pour out my spirit upon all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Says that your old man shall dream dreams and your young man shall see visions. We still see the manifestations of that in Paul's letter to the church of Philippi. That women are included. That women are included. And here we are 2,000 years later still trying to fight for equity for women. Women work in the marketplace and women can work, do the same job, but every dollar a man gets, a woman gets 87 cents for the same job, same position. And when you think about that, even politics, we saw last night Kamala Harris on a stage, and the pride it brought me as a black man to see a black woman as a Howard University graduate who's actually on the stage, the international stage, in a debate for the vice presidency of the United States of America. Such a historic moment that made me so proud. Never thought I'd see today a black man elected president. Never thought I'd see that, but a black woman in a debate candidating for the vice presidency of the United States. Regardless of your political affiliations, it was just a wonderful thing. Made me feel so proud. And to see her, to be able to be so articulate and so sharp, and know when to avoid questions, just like the other dude, Flyman, avoided questions, but I noticed something. I noticed something about Kamala Harris's disposition last night. First time when she interviewed Joe Biden when she was running for president, she took harsh criticisms in the press because they said she was too strong. She was too aggressive. And I watched that, how even last night, how she had to use pause. You can tell that they had coached her to not hold your emotions back, to not give a wrong opinion, to not give a wrong vibe emotionally. And it made me wonder that even now that she's having to watch, nobody said anything last week about the man saying whatever he wanted to say. Nobody said anything about last night, the man running all over the moderator. But the black woman has to watch her approach. And I'm sure you could tell, bite her tongue. A couple of times she could have been biting in her responses. But you could tell that it was about trying to win a base and not be labeled the angry black woman. You could just feel it, I'm telling you. And it made me wonder again that even though she's made incredible strides, that women sometimes have to bite their tongue and hold back in male-dominated spheres because we still have problems, including women. Even our churches, some of our churches, still believe that a woman can't preach the gospel or hold leadership positions. I just think that one of the challenges of this confinement is when we come out of this season, and maybe God is telling us that those of us who've been so patriarchal and so misogynistic and who still see women through the lens of second-class citizenship. 2016, there are a lot of men who would not vote for Hillary Clinton, not because she was the least qualified, but simply because of their biblical views about women and their own chauvinism and their own patriarchal perspectives. And the problem is we've allowed culture and wrong understandings of women to keep them on the forays and marginalized and prevent them from being included. But I believe that what's going to happen in our world, the state of Georgia could have had a woman governor 2 years ago who came very close. But you'd be surprised how many men, even African American men, would not vote for Stacey Abrams, not because she didn't have the qualifications or the articulation, but because of her gender. And what I love about this missive is Paul says that in order for things to be full and comprehensive, I can talk about Epaphroditus because he blessed me. You guys blessed me. I appreciate everything he's done and how you took care of each other. He talks about Epaphroditus in chapter 2, and how he had been ill. But he says, but today I want to talk about Epaphroditus because that's still on the side of patriarchy and including men. I want to include the women. I'm so thankful for that. There's some powerful women. I come from a line of pastors and my grandfather, my father, and great uncles. So many of them have inspired my faith, and I learned a lot. But if it had not been for my mom and my grandmama and godmother and Sunday school teachers, that the women, my principal, Betty J. Talbert, women in my life who have been inspirational. And what I believe Paul is saying to us, the challenge here is that when we come out of this confinement, in these preconceived notions about a lack of equity, a lack of equality, a lack of justice, a lack of righteousness in our treatment of women and inclusion of women, that some things going to stay on hold if we don't include. And so I'm so impressed, and I really believe in my desire that even politically, in the next month, that we allow people who qualify, even women, to get in the rightful positions, to really push them to the height, not just because. And when you're a black woman, that can be a double disqualifier, because not only do you have to be discriminated against because of gender, but also because of your blackness as well. And I was so proud of Kamala Harris last night, and it reminded me of Paul, because Paul is saying that even during this present day confinement, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to include sisters, because when you exclude sisters, a lot of the genius, a lot of the brilliance, a lot of the trajectory is going to be hindered and limited. You got to include. There's going to be inclusion, and I'm thankful that he includes them. And so this quarantine challenge is one that deals with the inclusion of sisters. But not only is there inclusion of sisters, the second point that Paul makes here, he says, now, and I want to thank them. The second point that he makes here is he instructs us to get things straight. He instructs us to get things straight. And there's an instruction to get things straight. And what he says here is he says, I urge them to iron out their differences. I urge them to iron out their differences. I need them to iron out their differences. They obviously had been going through some things. And he says, and I'm bothered by that, because the sisters are not getting along. He says, they're not doing well. And I need you to talk about this, because they are in the ministry. We're including them, but the sisters aren't straight. Matter of fact, they're not talking right now. I don't know who started it. I don't know who was responsible. But one is on one corner, one is on the other corner. I don't know if somebody talked about somebody. I don't know if it was a theological difference. I don't know if one of them said something to about another was child. I don't know what it is. I don't know if one of them got the hair done and got the hair dyed and the other one dyed this the same color. You just never know. You know, you don't know what the issue was, how deep or how trivial. Because it's reality. Because it's so possible that saints, men and women, that just because you're in the same place does not always mean that all the things are going to be what we call peachy keen, hunky dory, smooth sailing. That sometimes, because we're in the same organization, because we're so connected, that there are going to be differences. I think it's so important that we understand that we don't see everything through the same lenses. There will be divisions, there will be issues, there will be challenges. And these challenges are not just because they are women. For those who may be thinking that way, but the women can't get along. I've heard that before. Women don't work well together. I've heard that before. Some of our cultural things, women don't do this, women don't do that. Well, you do know that Paul is on this second missionary journey. You do know that Paul's second missionary journey started this, meaning that was a first missionary journey. You do know the second missionary journey was different from the first missionary journey. You did know the second missionary journey took Silas. Silas was not on the first missionary journey. Barnabas was. Well, why is Silas on the second missionary journey? Why wasn't Silas on the first missionary journey? Or why was Barnabas on the first missionary journey? And why was Barnabas not on the second missionary journey? I'll tell you why. Because they fell out. So the sheer foolishness of trying to say that there's a difference here in the church of Philippi because the women couldn't get along, Paul and Barnabas couldn't get along. Barnabas wanted to take his nephew John Mark with him on the second journey, but John Mark had left him and deserted him on the first missionary journey. It got so rough for him in that mountainous and ravenous region of Pamphylia that John Mark left the first missionary journey and went back home with his mama. And now they're going to start the second journey, and Barnabas wanted to take John Mark. Paul said, no, he can't, he's not going. They fell out. So even Paul and Barnabas had a falling out. So it's condescending, it's chauvinistic, and it's ridiculous to suggest that these women are falling out and holding grudges because they're women. I discovered sometimes men can be way more petty than women. So some of these little things and nuances and things that we say that are degrading, I watch our tone. You know, I've heard the saying, women always gossip. Okay, well, women can gossip, yes, but I know some men who gossip way more than women. Women can be very petty, and that be true. I know some men who can be way more petty than women. We heard this thing where a woman can't lead the country because women are too emotional and they can't control their emotions. Well, show me a woman who's more emotional than the current resident who lives in our White House, 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza in D.C. Show me somebody who's more emotional than that. If he can have a position, anybody can. My point is this, that differences don't come because of gender. Differences transcend gender. But no matter what the differences are, that's some things that we need to get straight. And I believe that's what Paul is saying in this chapter, in this challenge, that whatever things need to be straightened out, then now's the time to deal what's not straight. And this is not just relational. This could be business. This could be credit. It could be something. What in your life needs to be straightened? What in your life needs to be dealt with? What in your life is not in order? You're trying to get some things in order. Maybe it's cleaning your house. Maybe it's organizing your files. Maybe it's time to bring some order to what's unorganized. I think it's a very powerful point. It's a great quarantine challenge. Look at yourself as we close the next 4 months out and ask yourself, what is out of whack? What is not smooth? maybe my home, my mind, my clothes. Maybe it's a good time to get the clutter out of your closet. Maybe it's a good time to go through your stuff and your shoes and everything and organize. Maybe it's a good time to go through your kitchen. Maybe it's a good time to go and throw out everything that's not useful. Maybe it's time to get rid of the clothes that you haven't worn in 2 or 3 years. You're probably not gonna wear them again. The stuff you know you'll never fit into again. Maybe go give that away so God can send something else. One reason why God can't fit you because there's no room. So it could be that this is a good time that we should be take the instructions to get some things straight. Not just differences, but no structure, lack of organization. Look at your life. Say, God, help me to be more organized. Help me to be more organized with my time management. Help me be more organized with my finances. Help me go through all of my bills to look at it to see where my interest rates. What can I cut here? What can I cut there? Do I know where all my papers are? Where are your mortgage papers? Do you have your social security cards? Where are your insurance papers? What, you know, the deeds? Where's everything? Is everything in order? Maybe now is a good time during this confinement to get some stuff straight. And so in this text, this is really a quarantine challenge. Paul said, I want you to do a couple of things. He says, listen, he talks about the inclusion of sisters. That was point one. He talks about instruction to get things straight. There's one more thing he gives us. He gives us inspiration concerning salvation. He says this challenge, I need to give you something. I need you to be inspired concerning salvation. Look at this verse. Put the verse back up, then we'll close. I love this verse. It's a powerful verse. I just want to dissect it. I urge Euodia and Syntyche to work out their differences and make up. God doesn't want his children holding grudges. God doesn't want you got to let some stuff go. Get rid of the clutter. Be angry and sin not. Stop holding grudges. Let it go. Listen, don't steal. He said, I want them to make up. Now that's interesting. Paul says, I need y'all to get that straight. I need y'all to get back together. Now, he said, I want you, whatever forgiveness needs to be done, offer it, receive it. Now, I want to say a word about that. Forgiveness always, all the time, doesn't mean that forgiveness is releasing somebody from what was done. Forgiveness is not necessarily reinstating the position. That's tweetable, that's periscopable. Forgiveness is about release. It's not about reinstatement. Now, I'm gonna say it one more time. I need somebody to put that in the comments. I need you to tell that's Facebookable, that's YouTubeable, that's tweetable, that's periscopable. My God, that's Twitchable, that's Apple TVable. That's Roku Roku TVable. Forgiveness is about release, not necessarily about reinstatement. Did y'all type that in the comments? Make sure you get that. That just because I forgive a person does not mean I'm reinstating them to what they were. I need y'all to type that in the comments. Please type that in the comments. Let me see that. He says, God doesn't want his children holding grudges. What he's saying, I need them to get it straight. What Paul says is these two, I need y'all to make up because the work that y'all have done is necessary for my ministry. Every person that you forgive is not necessarily somebody that you reinstate. Sometimes you may forgive somebody and never have to deal with them again. And you got to be very discerning. It's just for you to release that person. It's not. So sometimes forgiveness is about releasing the person from what they did. It's about releasing pardon, not about reinstatement of the position. Please understand that. Some people they can be released, but never reinstated. But the challenge he gives them is, I want you to release them and reinstate them. He says, I need you to do this because they are profitable. They are better together. We were able to accomplish more. We can't let their differences be bigger than the assignment. He says it's almost like my destiny included them working together. It's peanut butter and jelly. We did better together. See, he says they fit like a glove. And it's hard to find the synergy and the chemistry that we had. See, some people you can release, and you can release that person, but you don't reach their position because they're not assigned to your destiny. But Paul says, I need you to help them work this thing out. Do your best. These women work for the message hand in hand with Clement and me. They work as hard as any of us. So they are part of the team. So Paul recognized that the enemy's job was to keep them separated. Because if he kept them separated, he was going to slow down the momentum. See, sometimes disagreements and sometimes issues come. It's not about the individual. It's about the assignment. So what the enemy does is try to distract, try to limit, tries to prevent you from doing your best job. What the enemy will do sometimes, it's hard sometimes to play ball. And you got teammates and y'all ain't talking. It's bad for the team. It's bad for the culture. That it's hard to play a basketball game and you don't like the person you're playing with. It makes it better when you can get rid of your differences so we can play freely. We ain't always gotta be best friends. What Paul realized is that these women, that they worked as hard as anybody else, that they were able to get things done working together. He says, so I need y'all to get that straight. I need them to release each other, and I also need them to reinstate the position. Because it's gonna be hard to find the same. You can let somebody go from the organization, let somebody go who was valuable. It's not that easy when you have institutional knowledge and somebody who knows the system, who knows they got to come together and mature and be beyond this and put their petty differences aside. Whatever insecurities or immaturities they have, they got to realize that these little idiosyncrasies, and it's really a good lesson on emotional health. Because Paul is saying you don't be so emotional to let your emotionalism distract you from the bigger picture. We got work to do. And sometimes you can miss that thing because you run away to people and can't get along with people who are sent there to help you execute the vision. So don't let division that comes from immaturity and insecurity bring about division that hinders the vision. Insecurity, immaturity can bring about division that messes up the vision. And so what Paul says is, I need them to work this out, whatever they got to do, because y'all better together. It's peaches and herb. It's barbecue and barbecue sauce. It's peanut butter and jelly. It's lemonade and water and sugar. It's lemons and water and sugar for lemonade. He says, and it works together. But if they are not straightening it out, put that scripture back up there. He said, I need you. Sazias, I need you. You're right there with them. Don't be messy. Don't take sides. You get in there. Don't you bring gas to the inferno. I need you to get that in the middle and help them work it out. Do your very best. Why? Because these women work for the message. I know them. They work hand in hand with Clement and me and with all of the veterans. They were just as instrumental in this church as any of us. You don't see their names. You hear about Clement. You hear about St. Paul. You hear about Timothy. You hear about Luke. But Euodia and Syntyche, these women here, they were just as important as us. They're veterans. And they worked as hard. And we cannot allow their petty differences. What if they deserve? Well, maybe the differences aren't petty. I don't know. Maybe it's petty relative to the message. Maybe they had some stark differences. But I call it petty. Pastor, is that condescending? No. Pastor, how can you categorize what they're going through as petty? That's not fair. You know, are you being desensitive, insensitive? Is that insensitivity? No. It might have been a big difference, a big issue. I call it petty relative to the overall mission. Because if Paul is saying they're prerequisite for the mission, anything that hinders the mission has to be categorized as petty. No matter how big, how small, it's petty relative to the size of the assignment. It's petty relative to the size and the trajectory of the destiny. He says work got to be done. And to get this straight, these women are important to my destiny. They're important. They worked as hard as anybody else. There's no hierarchy here. Then he goes into inspiration by salvation. They bless me. And put that scripture up there one more time. He says, listen, they worked as hard as any of us. Even though they're not operating properly right now, even though they're not functioning the way they should be functioning, he says, I give you inclusion of sisters, instruction to get things straight. But notice third of the inspiration of our salvation. He said, here's what. I don't want you just talking about how they're living right now. I want you to remember their names are also in the book of life. Oh my God. They're saved. They already reserved their places. They're secured. That even though they're at a place in their life where it's not proper, even though there's some disorder, even though there's some chaos, listen, the chaos has not canceled their assignment and their destiny. That they've already been written in the book. That the barriers they have, the burdens they have, does not mean they're in the book, not in the book. Oh my God. How inspirational is it that when we go through a little mess here on earth, and challenges here, and issues here, that the issues, present issues, doesn't mean that my promise for tomorrow has been canceled. I'm not waiting to get my name written in the book. My name is already written in the book. And that's why the enemy is trying to distract you, me, those two ladies, all of us. Because if he can get us discombobulated and off course, our challenge is to go out and help others get their names in the book. Our challenge is to present ministry so others can be saved. Doesn't mean they won't have issues or challenge. But if we can get off course to not have the right example, to not have the right voice, then it limits others. The devil knows he can't do anything with your name being out the book because he can't get an eraser. He can't get white out and white your name out the book because your name was written in the book in red ink. And no demonic whiteout can get the red letters of your name out the book. But what he can do is distract you and distort you and disrupt you to prevent you from being used to go and put others' names in the book as well. The moment God uses you to get somebody else saved, their name goes in the book. What I want to say to you, and God wants to use you to help get others to get in the book. But if he can get you off course and get off center, that's what it's going to do. And so that's the quarantine challenge today. That's the confinement challenge. The confinement challenge, Paul says, number one, dealt with the inclusion of sisters. The confinement challenge, point two, dealt with the instruction about getting things straight. And thirdly, the confinement challenge deals with inspiration about salvation. And here's the inspiration about salvation. That when you give your life to the Lord Jesus, your name is in the book. The president can't take your name off the book. They may can drop you illegally from the voter registration list, but they can't take your name out the book. They may try to repeal the Affordable Care Act and get your insurance card out of your wallet, out of your purse, but they can't take your name out the book. You listening to me here? They may try to redline to keep you from getting in certain communities because they want to keep them a certain complexion, but they can't take your name out the book. They may want to have the privatization of prisons to get our names on the docket to get more black and brown people incarcerated. But what they can't do, they can't get your name out the book. For I am persuaded that death, nor life, angels, principalities, powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate you from the love of God, whom the Father has placed in the hand of Jesus. No man can pluck out. Paul says in Ephesians that you have been sealed by the Holy Spirit unto the day of redemption. So rejoice in the God of your salvation. Take this confinement challenge. Make sure we include sisters. Make sure we get the instructions to get things straight. And may we be inspired about the nuances of salvation. May we be inspired to know that our names have been recorded in the book of life. So get up and let God use you to go get others' names recorded in the book of life. My friend, you've been watching Morning Dew. Hope you've been blessed. Hope you've been inspired. And as always, remember this. If you will be good to God, then God will be good to you. Until next time, peace.